A lot of life experience once told me, be careful who you get involved with. Marry the right person, your life is going to feel like heaven on earth. Marry the wrong person, your life might feel like hell on earth. I did not realize the magnitude of this truth until living it myself. I've always been someone who loves deeply, and I've always been great at loving other people. But for some reason, I just did not know how to love myself. Self-love, self-worth, they were like motivational quotes you see on social media. I couldn't wrap my mind around the two of those concepts beyond that, which is why I unknowingly was inviting into my life a parade of people who were either non-committal or extremely unhealthy emotionally. And to say it took a toll on my emotional well-being is an understatement. Every breakup felt like a funeral, and it got to the point where I was so broken inside, I felt like one more heartbreak, and this is seriously going to end me. I cannot keep going through this. Which is why, even though I saw the red flags, something in my gut, my intuition, which I believe to be the voice of God in my heart, told me, don't get involved with this person, don't go down this road. But here again, the thought of going through another heartbreak was unthinkable, and I was afraid of hurting him if I walked away. He lived in another country, so the relationship was long distance. Over the phone, I picked up on some really bizarre inconsistencies with his behavior, but I just figured he's stressed from work, hasn't gotten enough sleep. Once we're together, I can make him happy, all will be well. His text messages were like poetry, and when he promised me over the phone, I wanted so badly to believe him. And so I bought into a brilliantly crafted facade. We only met up with each other in person once before getting married. And as we were crossing the country together after saying I do, Jekyll turns into Hyde, and I realized I made the biggest mistake of my life. It was an emotionally abusive nightmare for 3 years, and it could have been a lot worse had I not been perfectly agreeable to everything he said, everything he wanted. I basically played a character that wasn't me just to survive. Every day felt like walking through a minefield. I didn't know when he was going to blow up. But what felt worse was living a lie, pretending like everything was okay. I felt so ashamed for making such a hasty decision to even get involved with this person, despite all those red flags. I didn't want anyone to know the truth. I didn't want anyone to know what was really happening behind the scenes. So I just vowed to myself that I was going to do whatever I could to make it work by showering him with kindness every day, lovingly push for counseling. Yeah, that did not work. So it got to a point where I knew deep down, I'm going to have to dig myself out of this train wreck and break free. Mind-blowing depression was my constant reality. But the greatest turning point of my life happened out of what felt like complete darkness. I need to share with you a quick backstory. When I was a little girl, I used to love going for walks and talk to God. I grew up Catholic, went to Mass every Sunday, but I always had this sense that God was bigger than church and definitely bigger than religion. And when I would go for these walks, I could just feel this loving presence all around me. I knew it was God. And I just always felt like God was looking out for me. I completely fell in love with God my whole life because of my experiences with this radical love, and especially during this relationship debacle. So at this point, the only time I could get alone was late at night. I would sneak out, walk laps around the neighborhood, and just pray that God would work a miracle and open this man's eyes. Well, God worked an even bigger miracle. He opened my eyes. And a series of life-changing breakthroughs happened. You cannot heal from something you're not aware of. So the first breakthrough is becoming fully aware of the fact I was seriously codependent and had been living my life for years just desperate to please other people and make other people happy. I neglected my own sense of value for so long, I completely lost myself. My identity was wrapped up in trying to save, fix, and rescue other people. I lost myself. I was trying to fulfill a role I was never meant to fulfill. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful thing to want to contribute to someone else's happiness, but we're not meant to be someone else's happiness. So I researched all that night about codependency. Fast forward, by the extravagant grace of God, I very strategically got out, got my life back, and when I crossed the border, had the weirdest feeling. It was so unnerving. I never felt so vulnerable. It was just me, myself, and all these feelings and emotions I was no longer numb to. But I knew that I had to work through these feelings and emotions if I was ever going to fully heal and just put an end to this obnoxious cycle of relationship catastrophe. My safe space for this to even be possible, of course, was going out for my long walks, talking it out with God, praying a lot, and meditating. And so many beautiful revelations came to me during that time. I realized that the love of God far exceeds all human emotion and bad decisions, because no matter how broken and screwed up I felt, no matter how many "what was I thinking" moments, God's plan for my life was infinitely bigger than I ever thought possible. And it was in my brokenness, alone with God, allowing myself to be vulnerable, layers of scars came to the surface. And this love I can only describe to you as divine healed those scars and all that pain. And I can distinctly remember waking up one morning feeling like a brand new version of myself, like something massive had been lifted off of me. And it was then that I realized that if I could accept the unconditional, radical love of God, despite my flaws and all my broken pieces, I could love myself. And it was then that I realized this is the starting point for having healthy relationships. The next breakthrough is discovering my true authentic self. It isn't until you know who you truly are authentically can you possibly know what makes you happy and fulfilled, how to show up as your best authentic self, how to align yourself with relationships that resonate with who you are and where you're going in life. And the third breakthrough is setting healthy boundaries and being okay with it. Can I just tell you how liberating it feels to be able to say no and reserve my energy for only who and what are aligned with where I need to be going in life. And the fourth breakthrough is having standards that honor your values and never compromising those values for anyone or anything. And always listen to the voice of your intuition. Even if it doesn't make sense, go with it. So I've made it a personal practice to be very in tune to the voice of God every day in my heart, guiding me, which I believe is my intuition, and trust it, even if it doesn't make sense, because God can always see what we cannot. And God is always moving on our behalf for our greater good, even if it doesn't look like it on the surface. My friends, with all my heart, I hope to be an encouraging voice to you that whatever your deepest pain might be right now, whatever your greatest struggle, there is magnificent purpose emerging out of what you think is impossible. And with all my heart, I pray over each and every beautiful person listening to me right now that you would experience the radical, unconditional love of God in such magnitude. It literally changes the trajectory of your life straight to the heart of God. My friends, with all my heart, I say this to you, that God will turn your deepest scars into a beautiful masterpiece. Don't give up. Thank you. Thank you.